Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Hope everything was safe. Hey, you know what? Here we are on Christmas Eve. Guess what that means? I won't be with you for the rest of the week. Going to enjoy family, going to enjoy the holidays, uh, going to I'm going to kick back and really do some, how should I put this? Well, just special reading. I've been reading kind of off and on the book by Brant Petrie, Jesus and the Jewish Roots of the Eucharist. Now, Mr. Petrie throws in an awful lot of his distinctive Catholic doctrines in the book, but his historical research in the background and the typology of Passover is just fantastic. I wish I had some of these books to sell, to be honest about it. This is just some really, really good stuff. Let me share something with you. A common point of controversy is the issue of the second Exodus. There are some people, amazingly, who deny the reality of the second Exodus. On Facebook just the other day, some folks were saying, well, I think the second Exodus is the entirety of time until the end of time. I mean, this is just unbelievable, literally unbelievable. The first Exodus was 40 years, right? So we're supposed to believe that the second Exodus is 50 times greater. I guess that's 50 times, right? Anyway, look, what Petrie points out in the book was that the Jewish rabbis understood and believed that the first Exodus was typological. As just one example of that, he cites on page 66, middle of the page, the final difference between the original Passover and Jewish tradition is that some traditions tied the Passover feast to the coming of the Messiah and the dawning of the age of salvation. Okay? Now, that's pretty remarkable within itself. Then he says, for example, in one ancient Jewish commentary on the book of Exodus, Rabbi Joshua, son of Hananiah, who was of priestly descent and had served in the temple before it was destroyed, says, in that night they were redeemed, referring back to the original Passover, and in that night they will be redeemed. In other words, the future redemption will take place on the same night as the original redemption, Passover night. Along the same lines, in the ancient Jewish commentary, in the Midrash Rabbah, God says to his people, on that very night, Passover night, know that I will redeem you. And again, the Messiah, who is called first, will come in the first month, i.e. Passover month. That's really rich stuff. So I'm going to be doing a lot of reading from some books just like this, just for pure old enjoyment, All right. And got to work on my old cars, too. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me here on Morning Musings. By the way, obviously, we don't have much time left here at the end of the year. The end of my 3-book special, The Resurrection of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 2, Fulfilled or Future, Like Father, Like Son on Clouds of Glory, and Blast from the Past, The Truth About Armageddon. If you purchase those 3 books separately, they would cost you over $61. Until the end of December, it ends on my birthday, December 31st, total cost to you is $40. That's delivered price. That's U.S. orders only. I can't make the offer for out of country orders. Now, listen, I'm so thankful for the wonderful response to this fantastic special. I got caught short. I ran out of books. I've got a stack of orders laying right over there that I have to fill. I hope that you'll be patient with me on this. My new inventory is supposed to be in no later than, guess what? Wednesday. Won't make it Wednesday, pretty obviously. But the moment I get my new inventory in, I will be mailing and shipping these orders off ASAP. So again, I apologize for any delay in shipping your order to you. If you haven't gotten it and you're wondering where it was at, it's because the response to the special offer has been so good. And I just simply got caught short and didn't have enough inventory on hand. Okay? But again, thank you so very much. All right. So here on my only video for this week, we're looking at Matthew chapter 24, where in verse 29, and I've been looking at the word immediately and what that means. You cannot extrapolate it out for 2,000 years. The linguistics do not allow it. I've been examining that in light of the tribulation, in light of the abomination. And so today I just simply want to recapitulate here in the few moments that I've got left. I want to recapitulate how significant this context really is. First of all, Jesus said, Matthew 24:14, this gospel of the kingdom will be preached into all of the world as a witness to the nations, then comes the end. Oh, by the way, quick digression. Many of you have requested that I put my Kindle book, The Gospel of Destruction, into paperback. Well, guess what? I am complying with that request, and it's now in book form, only here's the deal. It's now much larger than the Kindle version. I've added at least 3 chapters, and it will also have a scripture index and topical index, thanks to my great friend Scott Fisher out of Dallas, who has been so kind to do that for me. So I'm in the absolute final stages of preparing this for paperback. Lord willing, within a month of the new year, this book will be introduced in paperback form. And again, it's much larger. The paperback form will be much larger than just the Kindle version. So you can be looking forward to that. So anyway, back to the point. Matthew 24:14, this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to the nations. Then comes the end. Well, what end? What end had the disciples asked about? The end of the age that was tied to the temple at Jerusalem. And that cannot be the current age. The current age, the Christian age, the quote, Christian enterprise, unquote, was not symbolized by the Old Covenant temple. The disciples linked the end of the age with the fall of that temple. Now, go to my website, donkpreston.com. I'm posting articles there on whether or not the disciples were confused, whether or not they were wrong, whether or not they were ignorant to link the fall of Jerusalem and the end of the age. So go there, donkpreston.com, and read those articles. So, the preaching of the gospel into all of the world would be a witness to the nations, and then the end would come. In the New Testament, in Pauline writings, in Peter's writings, it is affirmed that the gospel had been preached into all the world to every creature under heaven. That meant that the end was near. They asked for a sign of the end of the age. Here is a sign of the end of the age represented by the temple. And by the way, that gospel, that message was the temple and Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. That was the good news. See the book. Secondly, his apostles would see the abomination of desolation. When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, let him who reads understand, then let those in Judea flee. That is the first century generation. When you see, flee. Why? Because then when? Upon the appearance of the abomination of desolation. You know, I've been asking a bunch of futurists on Facebook, what was the abomination of desolation? Holy cow, you would not believe the confusion. Now, all of them, stand opposed to preterism, but they're all over the map when it comes to identifying the abomination of desolation. You know why? Because they see a train coming. One individual says, well, the abomination of desolation is defined in Luke chapter 21, And verse 24, when you see, or verse 20, excuse me, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies. Okay, then that puts the abomination in the first century. Well, if the abomination is in the first century, then the Great Tribulation is in the first century. Others on Facebook evidently saw the train coming. They said, well, it really doesn't matter. Really? So they've gone ahead to say, well, it could have been the Zealots in the destruction of Jerusalem. It could have been Hadrian's destruction of the city in 135 AD. It could have been, and then they went to the Middle Ages. Really? How were the apostles going to see? By the way, there were no apostles alive in the days of Hadrian. There were no apostles alive in the Middle Ages. So whatever the abomination of desolation was, the apostles had to see it. And that meant that the Great Tribulation was going to be in the first century. Now watch again. Here's the power of that. Immediately after the tribulation of those days. What days? Those days when the gospel would be preached into all the world. Those days of the abomination of desolation. Those days of the tribulation, all of which the apostles would see. And that demands, therefore, that verse 29 and following would be fulfilled in that first century generation exactly and precisely as Jesus said, Matthew 24:34. Verily I say unto you, one of the strongest Greek expressions to drive home the validity and the power of the point about to be made, this generation will by no means, very, very powerful in the Greek, pass away until all of these things. All of what things? The preaching of the gospel into all the world, the appearance of the abomination of desolation, the great tribulation, and the coming of the Son of Man. This generation, not this people, not this tribe, not this kindred, not this kind of people, this generation will by no means pass until all, not some of it, not a little bit of it, not even most of it, until all of these things are fulfilled. Do you see how powerful observing the context really is? Do you honestly catch the power of that? Hey, thanks so much for joining me for this morning's morning musings. I truly appreciate it. And once again, here at the end of the year, would you please consider supporting our ministry in this upcoming year? One-time contributions, monthly support. We truly do need your help at this time. Hope you'll consider that prayerfully. In the meantime, God bless. Merry Christmas to you. We'll see you next week.